If you're tracking your spending, then you'll know, oh, every single month I spend $600 on food, or every single month I spend $1,500 on food. Whatever it is, that's where you can start. Now, you can look at those expenses and decide, do I need to spend that much money? Do I need to spend more money? Am I starving myself? Whatever it is, and you can determine what you think your budget ought to be from there. Now, does that mean that you're going to get it right the very first month? Probably not.
Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping educators like yourself navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Shaun Morgan, a full-time teacher and entrepreneur, and I'm here to help teachers navigate everything related to your money. Whether you have questions about budgeting on a teacher's salary, managing student loans, increasing your income, or making the most of your benefits, I'm here to make money less confusing, more empowering, and a tool you can use to focus on what matters most. So whether you're a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights or a new educator navigating your first paycheck, this podcast is your go-to resource for all things money related. So if you're ready to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life, let's dive in. The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional.
Hello, fellow educators. I'm so excited to have you here today. Me and you are going to be talking just about creating a budget and the importance of having a budget. I realized that we talked about tracking your spending as the best place to start, and that is the best place to start. And then you move on to paying yourself first, because that's the way to start building funds in your pocket. But that doesn't mean you don't need a budget. We don't like the word budget, but understanding how much you have to spend on certain categories will allow you to control and plan your finances much more effectively than just tracking your spending. But before we get to that, I just want to invite every one of you that if you have a financial question, if you have something that you would like to talk to me about, if you would like to plan for your future and just get a plan for how you're going to prepare for retirement, whatever you need help with, I am here for you. So if you go to teachermoneyshow.com/guest, you can fill out the form there and I can have you on the show and we can have a fantastic discussion, and it's free coaching. So I highly encourage you to take advantage of that. Also, I really appreciate it if you would take some time to like this video if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast, and to leave an honest rating and review, so that way we have more opportunities to share this important message with other educators. All right, that being said, thank you so much for being here. Let's talk about budgets. Budgets are hard. People don't like doing budgets. Well, some people do, but generally people don't like doing budgets because they remind us that we're falling short. Usually, though, that's because when you do a budget, you are starting with your budget. You say, I'm going to spend this much money on food. And then you spend twice that much money on food. And you go, how on earth did I spend that much money on food? Well, that's because you don't know how much you spend on food if you're not tracking your spending. So if you've been tracking your spending, and if you haven't listened to that episode on tracking your spending, I highly recommend you go back and listen to that and start there. If you're tracking your spending, then you'll know, oh, every single month I spend $600 on food, or every single month I spend $1,500 on food. Whatever it is, that's where you can start. Now, you can look at those expenses and decide, do I need to spend that much money? Do I need to spend more money? Am I starving myself? Whatever it is, and you can determine what you think your budget ought to be from there. Now, does that mean that you're going to get it right the very first month? Probably not. One of my favorite videos to show my students when I'm teaching them about budgeting, because why not have the social studies teacher teach 7th graders about budgeting? was a video of Dave Ramsey, who I don't agree with everything he says, but a lot of things he says are fantastic. He says, the first time you do a budget, you're going to suck. And I think that is a great description. It's going to be hard. It's going to be wrong. It's going to be frustrating because you don't have it dialed in yet. That's the part of the process of you set these parameters and say you blow up your budget the first month, but you think, no, I can actually do that. And then the next month you do it. Great. But the month after that, you blow it up again. Maybe you need to put some more padding into those parts of your budget and try and find other ways to cut back. Budgeting is all about setting boundaries on your spending, but then not rigidly holding on to those at the detriment of your life, holding on to those limits and adjusting and tweaking them as you go. So that way you figure out what the budget of your lifestyle is. So that way, instead of saying, I have to stick to this restrictive format, I am creating the format that I want. So if you've tracked your spending and you've identified things that you don't want to spend on anymore, you can cut those out. So that way you can adjust and tweak your budget to meet your lifestyle. Okay, with that intro, let's talk about creating your budget. So there are 3 steps to creating the budget. The first is to base your budget on your spending, which I've talked about slightly, but just wanted to go over each of those. And then the second is to balance your budget. And then the third is to review your budget with your partner. And we'll get to that one. We'll talk about that one in depth when we get there. So the first step is to base your budget on your spending. Most budgets fail because they're arbitrary. Okay. You say, I'm going to spend, $100 on entertainment. I just made that number up. It doesn't mean anything, right? It doesn't reflect what I actually spend up. I'm going to spend $100 on clothes because that's a category that people for some reason have in their budgets. I don't spend money on clothes every single month. You might, but I don't. So having a budget for clothes makes 0 sense for me, right? You might have a budget for golfing equipment. I don't golf, okay? I have a budget for things that you don't have a budget for. I need to have a Home Depot budget. I go there way too much. Some people wouldn't. Right? If you're renting, you might not go to Home Depot as much as I go to Home Depot. It is entirely up to you what is in your budget. Don't make it arbitrary, and you need to base it on your spending. So tracking your spending is the first step to budgeting. Now, when you are doing this, you need to keep in mind that you will have 2 types of expenses in your budget: variable expenses and fixed expenses. Okay, the fixed expenses are the same every single month, right? They are your mortgage or rent, your car payment, your insurance payments, things like that come back again and again and again. Technically, even a subscription is a fixed payment because it doesn't change. However, you can easily remove those payments. Variable expenses change from month to month. Utility bills, food bills, entertainment bills, those things fluctuate from month to month depending on how much you eat, how much you use your electricity, and so forth. Now, generally speaking, the variable expenses are the easiest to reduce. You can cut back on food a little bit by eating out, less by 1 time or 2 times a month, or you can cut down your utility bill by turning down your thermostat a degree during the winter and turning it up a degree in the summer. Things like that can make impacts on your spending, on your expenses in the variable expenses category pretty quickly. But the impact is actually quite small. The big 3, which are the 3 biggest things that people spend on every single month, are where you really need to focus if you're going to try and drastically reduce your spending. So if you realize that you are $1,000 or $2,000 over your budget, and that's why you're going into debt, then you need to look at the big 3 if you can't figure out what the problem is. So mortgage is the biggest. Most people spend the majority of their money, the biggest category of their money on their mortgage. I recommend not spending more than 25% of your budget on your mortgage or your rent. 30% is probably the high end, but they let you get up to 50 or 55% of your income. And that's considered within your means by mortgage companies. So please look at your housing costs as one of the big three, one of the biggest things you're going to spend on. And while it's hard to get out of housing or to reduce your housing, you get used to your lifestyle in your house. That might be a first step to take if you are struggling to make ends meet. The second one is your car. Car payment is usually part of this. And then we also have maintenance and gas and so forth. And insurance is also in there. Check your insurance every single month. Not every single year. Make sure that if you just stick with the same insurance company, your rates are going to go up and up and up and up. Get it requoted, spread it out. Who can give you the best deal? That'll keep your insurance costs lower. Having a dependable used car instead of the newest and best car, that's going to reduce your expenses as well. And I know that most teachers have used cars just because that's what we can afford. But paying off that car and then keeping it instead of getting a new one or getting another one, that's going to keep your expenses lower. And then try not to drive if you don't have to. Take a walk, ride a bike, things like that. Those can reduce your big three. And then the last one is food, which is a variable expense, but it's one that you have to you need to spend money on food. You can't not have food. So you can find cheaper alternatives. You can use coupons, eat out less, have less Starbucks on your way to work. Yeah, I know that we do that, right? The school's coffee might not taste as good, but it's free. Or I swear every day teachers were, I'm going to run on my break to go get a drink. Maybe that's just here in Texas where there's a Sonic down the road everywhere and everyone always goes to Sonic for a quick drink. But it adds up, right? Even if you want to keep that, but you cut it in half or cut it by 20%, anything you can do to keep your food expenses low. Keep in mind that it's up to you what you do with your budget, but you need to have a budget. You need to have this plan in place of how you're going to spend your money. So a budget is a lesson plan. All right, you need to have one before you start teaching. If you don't have a lesson plan, it's not going to go well. You need to have something prepared. You can't just say, I'm going to wing it. That's never worked for a teacher. Even people who don't build lesson plans have a plan. They have an idea. They have resources, things like that. So building a lesson plan, that's what a budget is. That doesn't mean you're going to follow it. You just need to have one so you can adjust it, right? You might plan to get through a whole unit in a week and then you're in your lesson plan, but then you only get through half because that's where your students are at. You've adjusted the lesson plan, but thank goodness you had the lesson plan. As our president in the past, Dwight D. Eisenhower said, plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. So that's what budgeting is all about. It's having that plan in place, beforehand, because even though it's going to become useless, it isn't useless in the moment that you adjust it. All right, the second step is to balance your budget. Okay, so when you mess up and spend over, okay, when you are not going to stay within your budget every single month. It's just not going to happen. Even people who are experienced in financial planning go over on their budget occasionally. When you need to balance your budget, there's two ways to do it. Make more money, spend less money. That's it. There's nothing else you can do to fix it once you've already gone over on your budget. Making more money, you can use a side hustle. You can, sell something on Facebook Marketplace. You can, have a side job if you really wanted to. Whatever it is you want to make more money with, you can get coaching after school. There's all these different things you can do to make more money. Although I highly recommend side business for teachers, or you can spend less money. Spending less money is less fun, but if it's a consistent problem, if you're going over because you're spending too much, that might be the better thing to tackle up front, because it's easier to spend less money than it is to make more money when your time is limited. But just keep in mind that you're not going to be perfect right away. All right, you won't fix your finances overnight. If you are consistently going into debt, that's not going to be fixed just because you listen to one podcast episode. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to, to work at it and to chip away at this and balance your budget. Just do one thing at a time, right? This month you're going to work on getting your food budget under a certain amount. The next month you'll work on your car and figuring out how you can reduce the expenses of your car or whatever it is. And eventually, if you focus on one thing at a time, you will get your spending under control. If you just sit there and look at all these issues and all these things that you could be spending on, but you are spending on, but you shouldn't be spending on, or whatever, you're gonna struggle. So just focus on one thing at a time. You will make it. You will make it. Just keep in mind that you have to track your spending to figure out what you can spend less on. Because if you are not tracking your spending and you just look at the end of the month and you say, oh man, I spent $3,000 and I needed to spend $2,000, darn, I'll do better next month. That's not going to work, right? You need to have that tracking going on so that we can say, wow, I spent way too much on gasoline. I guess I need to stop driving, 3 hours to my Aunt Judy's house every other day or whatever. Make a plan to spend less next month based on your previous spending. All right, the third step is to review your budget with your partner. Now, if you don't have a partner, if you're single, then you don't need to get a partner to review it necessarily, although I highly recommend that you get somebody who you can be accountable with. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but you need to talk to somebody. Talk to your mom. I don't care who you talk to. Just let them know, look, I'm trying to improve my spending, and this is where I'm at. If you have a partner, that's even more powerful because it's your spending together, right? So if you review it together, then you're able to make those tweaks you need as you go. If you just make the budget, track your spending, and then you don't talk about it, it's never going to change. There is power in improving 1% every day. So focus on that. What's that 1%, that one thing that I can do or that we can do together to improve, right? Maybe instead of getting the grande mocha, you can get whatever the next size down is. I don't even know what they're called. So, just a few pennies here, a few dollars here, it can make a difference over time, that 1% improvement. And that's the type of thing that you discuss with your partner. Now, please do not make this well, you did this and I didn't do that. And, how dare you? Like that's not what you need to do. You just point out, it looks like we're overspending in this category. What can we do? What can we do to reduce our spending here, to cut back so that way we are staying in our budget? Or how can we make more money so that way we can continue to live this lifestyle that we're enjoying? Whatever the plan is, that's what you discuss with your partner. These discussions can be fun. I know that this probably it makes you nervous, but it can be fun. Call it a money date, okay? Get yourself a pizza, get yourself a nice dinner, not like, ritzy, right, where you're spending more than your budget to talk about your budget, but, get yourself something nice, sit down, play a game, talk about where you're at, and just do something fun together while you're doing it. So that way it's not something that you dread, it's something that you can enjoy discussing together. Eventually, as you do this over time, you will make those simple improvements, which will start to grow your wealth, and you won't have to make all these tweaks because you'll be in the rhythm. It'll become habit. So that is the key. Just make those tweaks and adjustments by discussing it with your partner, and over time it will grow to great wealth for you. And that's the power of keeping within a budget. So just to recap, budgeting. A budget is a plan on where you want your money to go. Your budget should be based on your spending. So you have to track your spending before you make your budget. You can balance your budget by making more or spending less. And small tweaks made with your partner lead to great results. So I just want to invite you to If you haven't tracked your spending yet, track your spending. But if you've been tracking your spending, sit down and create a budget. I recommend you do this with your partner. And then after you've created it, see how it goes, make a tweak, right? So this is the two-step invitation. And the way you make that tweak is by having a money date about your budget, okay? If you're single, take yourself out, get a little ice cream, sit down and look at your budget, whatever it is. Make it fun, make it something you look forward to. And then just make sure that you are keeping yourself accountable by talking to your partner or talking to someone else about your budget.
If you'd like to come on the podcast for coaching, to share an expert opinion, or just to talk about a topic you think is relevant, I'd love to talk to you. Just fill out the form at teachermoneyshow.com/guest. I look forward to talking with you.